Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome back once again. Today we're going to take a look at another amazing flipper from Custom Knife Factory all the way over in Moscow, Russia. And what we're going to be looking at today is the new Ratata. That's right, that's the real name, the Ratata, which is going to be the follow-up to the very large T90, which you can see I've also done a video on as well. So we're going to take a look at the Ratata and we're going to compare it to the T90 and give you an idea what the differences are, what the similarities are, and maybe help you decide which one will be best for you. Woo! Okay, silliness out of the way, T90 out of the way. Let's start with this bad little bitch in the hand. This is a much more compact variation of the T90. Now, both of these have been designed by Alexei Konyshin. And according to all the stuff that I've seen Mike post on Custom Knife Factory's website, apparently Alexei's nickname is Ratatouille. I don't know why. I'm not really sure what the whole deal is there. And I'm going to make the assumption that that is where the Ratata name comes from. Just gonna have to go with that. If I'm wrong, I'm sure he will correct me immediately upon viewing this video, and then I'll probably write something right here as an annotation and go, oh, I'm an idiot, and here's the real reason. Alright, so let's get into this right now and give you the comparisons side by side. Alright, so when you look at the Ratata, I'm sorry, I can't say it normally. I can't say Ratata. It's Ratata. It's like you got to put a sound effect in there somehow, some way, every time you say it. It might even be more fun to say the name than to actually own the knife. I'm not sure yet. Alright, so the blade length on the Ratata is 3.66 inches, which for me is perfect. My preference is to be between 3.5 and maybe 3.85 inches. That's my real zone. That's my sweet spot. So this definitely falls within that. A little bit larger than your standard 3.5-inch flipper. However, because of them basically running the blade all the way to the butt of the frame, there's very, very little room left over. This still feels as compact as a standard 3.5-inch flipper does. Conversely, the T90 is a 4.09-inch blade. They're both done in Bowler M390, so you've got a fantastic steel. It's going to hold an edge for a very, very, very long time. As you see, there are different grinds. They are both flat grinds. Here you've got a full flat with an accenting swedge or top clip, however you want to refer to that. And here you have what looks like was going to be a standard 3/4 flat grind, and then they buzz it from here all the way to the tip as a full flat, and then they run kind of an elliptical shaped swedge right here. So definitely they both have some really, really cool geometry to them, very fancy, very cool, but still being a good functional flat grind. So fantastic there, both an M390 steel. These both, by the way, are the same price. $375 when these were available. You could probably still find some at some dealers, but I don't believe they have any direct from Russia with knives. And then this one being brand new, this is obviously available. It is also $375. Now the overall length, you've got 8.27 inches. Again, very compact and easy to carry. The T90, oh, hold on to your shit. 9.45 overall. It's a big knife. It has surprised everybody that got it. But what's also surprising is how easy that large knife carries. So, you know, I never had an issue with the T90 being too large. It's been perfectly fine for me. I've actually carried that knife a lot. You can actually see there's all kinds of marks on it and everything else from just everyday carry. But it's never really been an issue. But if you do want something a bit smaller, the Ratata is going to be the way. See, I can't fucking say it normally. Anyway, the Ratata is going to be the way to go. Weight difference is not that big of a deal. 4¼ ounces versus 5½ ounces. And that may be a lot for some people. That's going to be number one in the size, obviously, of the knife. Number two, the blade stock is quite a bit thinner. And number three, while this has all this cool milling, they have actually cut out and skeletonized both sides of the frame, even around the lock. So when you close it, with the blade being the same finish as the frame is, you don't really notice it that much. It kind of just looks like a T90. And then when you open it, oh, hello! See, right there. Both have fantastic actions, as you would expect from all Custom Knife Factory knives. This does utilize ceramic bearings. I do not recall if the T90 had ceramic bearings yet or not. So I'm just going to say that they're both running on bearings, but I know for a fact that this one is running on ceramic bearings. So that gives it the option to run smoother and faster. Now, when I first opened the pouch, I had a little bit of a concern with this little itty bitty flipper tab. I was afraid it wasn't going to give me the leverage that I needed to get the same type of flipping action that I'm accustomed to in all of CKF's other knives. However, I was immediately surprised, wonderfully surprised, that it is awesome. It'll remind you, if you've played with the Sablia, it will remind you of flipping the Sablia because of how far forward of the center of the pivot that it is. When you look at the T90, that had that big triangular flipper, and it was certainly very easy to access. But it was a little bit slippery. You just saw my finger slip off of it because it's smooth-faced. Not so the case here. You've got Ratata jimping on your flipper tab. And honestly, for as tiny as it is, low profile, and as far forward as it is, it needed that. And it gives you the perfect amount of leverage. It will be marked M390 right there on your blade. Other side of the blade is sterile. Mine obviously being marked prototype here. Yours won't be. I'm not sure where they're going to be numbering them. I'm going to assume, since this is written here, that maybe the numbering for the knife will be there. It's possible. Where did they number? I don't even see the numbering on my T90. And you always have to look, because sometimes they'll do it on the flipper tab. No, I don't see where the numbering is. They always number their knives. And I just don't see it here, and I'm not going to waste a lot of time looking for it. But I'm not sure where they're going to number it, but it could possibly be there. I got to tell you, it is one of the slimmest and lightest weight flippers that I've got in a knife this size, because this is still a sizable knife. You're still looking, basically 8¼ inches overall length. That's not tiny, just not very, very large. But I've got a lot of 3½ inch blade flippers in my collection, and this, because of how slim it is, really carries off very, very well. Now, even though all this is slim, you'll also notice they've still milled pockets out inside of the titanium frame. So that makes it even more lightweight than it probably should be. The black stonewash finish looks amazing as always, and this really isn't going to be the kind of finish for everyone. And they really don't do this on very many of their knives, but they did it on the T90, they did it on the newest Sequoia, but it was only on the blade, and obviously they're doing it here. I love it. It's got kind of this post-apocalyptic or battle-worn kind of finish to it. It's another one of those ways that you can justify carrying and using your knife more often. Because while I typically spend $1,000 and up on my knives, I generally don't buy any production knives. The only production knives I'm really super into, love the Ratata knives, and of course the Custom Knife Factory knives. I've owned almost everything that they've made. Unfortunately, I still don't have one of their finger spinners, and you guys know how I love my fidget toys, but I'm going to have to do that at some point soon. But out of all the finishes they've done, this is actually one of my absolute favorites because, like I was going to mention, you know, there are a lot of us that do spend a lot more money on knives, but for the vast majority of people, $375 is a shit ton of money to drop on a pocket knife. Let's face it. It's a luxury item at that point. You could buy a knife for $50 that will cut things, it will carry well. It probably won't cut things very long because the heat treat isn't going to be as good, and you know the steel isn't going to be as good at $50 and shit like that. But you know, that's the difference between a tool and a luxury item. And for those of us that like to take our luxury items and use them as tools, a lot of times you may stop yourself and go, man, you know, I've got a lot of money invested in this thing. I don't know that I really want to scratch it up, tear it up, mar it, screw it up in any way. And when you've got a finish like this, you are much more inclined to use it and less likely to feel guilty when you start leaving marks on it. That's why I like this so much. Plus, it kind of oozes badass. You know, there are just certain things, you know, you look at certain cars even, when it's done in black, it looks more badass than if it's white or brown or gray or yellow. Especially when you start getting into, you know, like a matte black. The hood on my car is done in that Hot Rod Flats, that matte black. And it just kind of makes the car look more badass than the versions that I've seen that have the body color on the hood. I like that look. It looks more badass. That's just me. Yeah, maybe you're the same way. I don't know. The hardware is going to be the same, albeit smaller. The pivot screw looks to be the exact same size, but the rear standoff and the standoff hardware is smaller. The same hardware being used for the clip. By the way, for those that are worried, because when they see a single screw on a clip, they're worried that it's going to move back and forth. What they're doing is they're milling a pocket into the frame, and there's a tab basically for that base, and that drops into the pocket, then they screw it down to secure it, and that's what keeps them from moving back and forth. I've had this ever since, actually before it came out, and yeah, mine's still rock solid. It ain't going nowhere. Whichever way you decide to go, honestly, you're getting a fucking fantastic knife. And by the way, don't handle it as carelessly as you're seeing me do it. They sharpen their knives truly razor sharp, and it's a very, very, very thin edge behind it as well. Certainly not a knife that's going to be, you know, used for chopping. Very, very thin edge. I should have broken out my micrometer and measured back there, because I'm actually surprised at how thin that is. And the tip is very thin as well. But for general EDC tests, this is going to be great. I love the fact that you've got all that belly to the blade. So, you know, as you're cutting something, you've got that extra bit of belly there to do a little bit of rocking. You know, even if it's just something as simple as cutting paracord and getting a nice clean cut, it's really nice to be able to have that. You've got a good usable tip, very, very sharp. The edge goes all the way back here to a false choil. That should make it pretty easy for those of you that like to sharpen at home. I know there are definitely people that gripe and complain when a maker doesn't give them any area there. So there you go. Does the T90 have that? I don't really. They put basically a sharpening notch on the T90. So yeah, there's definitely some similarities. You can definitely see that they share DNA, but it really is a remarkable little knife that I think kind of holds its own. You don't need to own a T90 to appreciate the Ratata. I love the blade grind. It's unique, it's cool, it's different. Alexi is known for doing some wacky, way out shit on his grinds. If you've never seen it, I'll show you one of his customs. For those of you that have watched my channel a lot, you already know this knife. This is one of Alexi Konijin's customs. This is the Decepticon custom. And, I mean, he's doing funky grinds all the way around. And see what I mean when I was talking about, you know, those of us that will spend more but still like to use their knife as a tool. I mean, you can still see where, you know, I'm cutting shit, and this is, over $2,000 when you look at the fair market value on it, and I really don't give a shit. It's made to be used. But obviously simulating his custom hardware in the pivot there and in the standoff in the back, simulating some of the unique grinds that he does. Very, very cool stuff. The guy is incredibly talented, very, very creative. And, when we first found out about Alexi, going back probably to 2010, maybe 2011, when he made the very first of the Decepticons. And, a few of us stumbled across that one lonesome video that was on YouTube, and we went, holy shit, what is that? Who makes it? I've got to have it. That's insane. And, now we've become accustomed to the work that he does, but everything that he does, he takes it up a notch. And everything he does is shocking in some way. And I got to tell you, this is a great production version of the creativity that Alexi displays in his designs. So if you can't afford to spend, $1,200, $1,500, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 on some of his crazy customs, then you can still get his genius design in a knife that's built exceedingly well, in titanium, in M390, with a great finish for $375. And not be afraid to use it, play around with it, carry it. Oh, I'm really digging that little tiny flipper tab. I really am. And let me see if I can hold this right so you can see it as it's happening. You can watch the blade fly out of the frame and become hollow. No, it's like my hand still has to be somewhere holding it. How about if I do this? I'm waiting for the tip to come out and slice me the fuck open. There you go. That really wasn't that dramatic of an effect. That really wasn't worth all the effort I just put into that. But, well, I won't edit it out. I'll keep it in and look like a fool. Anyway, guys, there it is. There is the T90. There is the Ratata. And that is it for me, folks. I've got more videos on the way. Thank you, as always, for watching. It's always my pleasure to come out here and bullshit with you. If you have any questions for me, go ahead and throw them in the comments down below. I know a lot of you have been commenting lately that you want to see another knife ramble video. It's a little harder for me these days to do that, and I'll explain that in a future video. Maybe I'll do a quick little knife ramble video, and I'll just make it a little bit more on a positive note, and maybe not bitch and complain so much about the stuff that's going on in the industry. But keep an eye out. I'll get one of those out there for you by request. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next video.